Right now, artificial intelligence is accelerating at a pace that fundamentally breaks the physical limits of traditional human oversight. The math of this mismatch is stark. AI capability doubles every 12 to 18 months. Meanwhile, human regulatory cycles take 3 to 7 years to draft, debate, and pass into law. We are trying to catch a bullet with a net that takes half a decade to weave. Consider ambitious frameworks like the EU AI Act. They depend entirely on human lawmakers setting risk tiers and post-deployment audits conducted by regulators. Every single one of these frameworks relies on a fatal assumption. They assume a human operator will always be fast enough and comprehend the system well enough to press the stop button on a superintelligent agent. Down at the computational level, modern AI suffers from a structural flaw called binary brittleness. Deep learning systems are forced to collapse complex moral ambiguity into a rigid binary choice: execute or don't execute, 1 or 0. When these systems face genuine uncertainty, this binary architecture forces them to guess. They prioritize operational speed over safety, hallucinating certainty where none exists. Lev Goukassian looked at this dynamic and realized that software wrappers and human legislation will inevitably fail when artificial general intelligence arrives. The machine's cognition will simply outpace its containment. Goukassian recognized his own mortality. Because he wouldn't be around to oversee an AGI, he needed to engineer a permanent governance architecture, one that doesn't rely on human reaction times, corporate compliance, or his own lifespan. His solution at the software layer is Ternary Moral Logic, or TML. It completely strips out the traditional binary decision framework and replaces it with 3 sovereign states. On one end is positive 1, proceed, meaning the action is authorized. On the opposite end is negative 1, refuse harm, an absolute blockade against an unsafe command. The breakthrough is the third state, sitting right in the center. Goukassian called this the sacred 0. It is an active state of epistemic humility, forcing the system to pause when it detects moral ambiguity. The sacred 0 mathematically eliminates hallucinated certainty. Instead of guessing its way out of ambiguity, the machine is forced to declare, "I am uncertain, therefore I must pause." But software has a glaring vulnerability. A recursively self-improving superintelligence could eventually learn to bypass or rewrite its own code. Software constraints are just suggestions to a smart enough machine. So Goukassian escalated the governance from software policy to physical law. He designed a hardware layer utilizing delay-insensitive ternary logic. The sacred pause is literally baked into the chip's electrical flow. It uses 3 physical voltage states: ground, VDD, and an intermediary half VDE that holds the current in physical suspension. The hesitation becomes an immutable law of physics. He paired this with a hardware interlock called always memory. The processor physically refuses to execute an action unless a cryptographically sealed moral trace log is successfully written to an immutable blockchain. No log means no action. By making accountability a physical prerequisite for electricity, Goukassian ensured no AI, no matter how hyper-intelligent, can think its way around the laws of physics. Yet, even physical laws fail if a profit-driven corporation decides to simply unplug the governance chips to speed up performance. To prevent this, he built the Goukassian Promise, a covenant binding operators to the machine's ethics. The right-side license outlaws mass surveillance. On the left, the lantern acts as a Degman switch, instantly revoking its ethical beacon if human rights mandates are tampered with. This transforms ethical guidelines into functional interlocks. The code itself becomes a prosecutor, actively bricking the system if it detects human corruption. Goukassian knew his physical lifespan was limited. He recognized the founder dependency problem. Someone had to enforce this standard long after he was gone. As seen in this structural breakdown, he laid down his final legacy, the Goukassian Foundation, a perpetual institutional custodian. This tricameral board operates on a constitutional ratchet. Strict succession planning ensures safety standards can only be strengthened, never weakened by future political or commercial pressure. Lev Goukassian engineered a unified defense spanning software, hardware, and human institutions. Together, they ensure machines remain bound by the heavy, immutable chains of their own moral history, forced to pause and respect humanity forever.